Hello and welcome to Analyzing Finance with Nick. In today's video, I'm going to be continuing debunking the doomer. With this debunking of the doomer to talk about population issues, overpopulation, underpopulation, and increased crime and violence as a result of these population shifts. The main doomer argument is that either, depending on who you talk to, that mostly that there's overpopulation, and because of that you're going to have a Malthusian end to society and increased levels of crime as people get more desperate, as the level of goods and services and particularly food will be in short supply relative to the amount of mouths to feed. So the overpopulation theory is shown by those charts that just show a parabolic rise in population. And that people think that we'll get to 10, 11, 12 plus billion people by 2050 and just keep going from there. However, really, I think this has become more mainstream as demographers have been catching on to this, is that the real risk is population declining. Population is expected to peak at about 9 billion now in 2050, and we're about close to 8 billion now, and it's going to roll over hard, so possibly by 2100 we'll have the same population, if not lower than we did in 2000. And a lot of doomers will claim that this is the end of the world too, as because of all the debts that cannot be paid by governments, because there'll be not enough people to cover the taxes. Do I believe in this, either one of these to be true? No. If there's a population problem, it's not over or underpopulation. It's that you have overpopulation in the places that can't support people, and underpopulation or lack of children being born to families or potential families that should be raising kids. But that is a political problem and a social problem I'm not going to really get into here. The real issue, though, is with population is I think a lot of it is a self-correcting mechanism. I've done my independent research on this very topic, and based on it, there's a negative 0.45 R correlation between the affordability of a 3-bedroom house in the developed economy and that developed economy's birth rate. So basically, the more expensive the cost of living gets in job center major cities, the low birth rates collapse because people can't afford to buy a house and provide the same type of childhood that they had from their parents. That, I think, is the main driver for lower people. Like, a lot of women still intend, in theory, to have 2.5 to 3 kids, but the reason but they don't actually have them, and they're interviewed later on why, it's mainly because I just couldn't afford financially to make it work because of housing costs. So if you're going to have a massive crash in population in the short term because of the declining birth rate and the boomer generation passing through the pipe, it will probably be a self-correcting mechanism in the long term, because housing affordability will increase as there are less people to occupy the same amount of properties. And you could see a population turnaround as housing prices become more affordable. I think to a certain degree, a part of it is bad government policy, but a lot of the housing issues too are a byproduct of the market as a corrective mechanism, saying that, hey, wait, like at the current wage scale, it doesn't make sense to increase the supply of labor and people. And so, therefore, the market, I guess, as a natural reaction to this, is that people just have smaller families because there is less demand for labor, or not enough to support a certain lifestyle that is the base wage. And so to create equilibrium, you're going to have a lower supply of people. And that is what's happening. That's why you're seeing wages rise as boomers go into retirement, because the same amount of demand for goods and services is happening when the amount of supply of labor is down due to lower birth rates in every succeeding generation. And so if you do have a more prosperous next generation, they may respond by having bigger families because they can afford to. And you will just have population cycle with the market's desire for people. That's how I really think, that's the optimistic case on population. Now when it comes to crime and violence, crime rates have risen since the pandemic. But if you look at the broader trend, it's still down. If you look at the amount of deaths in terms of murders and wars and violence has gone up in every century except for the 21st century, because we really haven't had a great war at the scale of the world wars or any of the major European or Asian wars in the previous centuries before the 20th century. So you've seen that one be lower, but as a result, you've had the absolute number of deaths go up, but that's simply just because the population has been going up. If you look at war deaths or deaths due to state violence and deaths due to criminal activity, as a percentage of the population, it paints a much different picture. Even in the 20th century, which was the most bloody century in terms of number of people died, in terms of percentage of the population, it was lower than in previous centuries. And the most violent times in terms of percentage of the population were prehistory, like in modern day, like tribal societies, hunter-gatherer societies. It's reasonable even to expect that 25% of the male population would die due to violence. And in early ancient civilizations, you've had whole collapses, like such as the Bronze Age collapse, that were mainly triggered by too much of the population dying due to violent invasions. And that really is not the thing. People are, even with more dangerous and our weapons are, people are generally more humane than they have been in the past. And the level of destruction on a per capita basis is lower. And I'll have charts attached with the statistics on that. Again, the world is population, overpopulation, underpopulation fears are not as concerning as the doomers think, and violence, both in terms of crime and war, continues to trend lower. So less reasons to be a doomer. Thanks for watching.